And welcome to the Elite Mark Order End of Year 2022 AEW Awards. I'm Cosmic Scott. That's JV, and we're doing this again.
Well, this is our second attempt at starting the year-end review. Johnny Ace was here earlier on our first attempt at this, and so maybe he'll show up later, but there are no guarantees. We're not sure how he got in or if he'll be able to get in again. These people, somehow they can pack into our podcast.
Did you give the key out to somebody?
Not me. Not me. I have it locked down. So for the year-end awards, we had each of the Elite Mark Order staff vote on their picks, and there is 6 of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through a bunch of different categories: the top male, top female wrestler of the year, top tag team, male and female breakouts, the match of the year, the announcer of the year, the feud of the year, and also the promo of the year. So why don't we get right into the promo of the year? All 6 members of the Elite Mark Order voted for MJF, one MJF promo or another. And Scott, why don't you tell us about the one that you picked and the one that you feel is the most important MJF promo of the year?
All right, so I love repeating myself. The one that I went with, and the one that lingers, the one that to me stood out the most, was the "Fire Me, You Fucking Mark" MJF promo, when he got suspended for a couple of months, when the network was actually behind the scenes. Tony literally had network executives there when he cut this promo. It was amazing that they were able to pull it off, and it was the talk of the town for months. MJF went radio silent for a couple of months. Tony wouldn't talk about it, and it was the subject of news for months. There are other promos that are just as good and powerful and impactful, but I don't think any had the real lingering conversation, cross-brand, and even into some of the general population, not even wrestling fans, heard about this stuff. MJF has crossover appeal, and this promo solidly put him in the books as, this dude's a hell of a talker. What's going on? And is he suspended? Is he coming back? Nobody knew. He blurred the lines of kayfabe in a way that nobody's done it since basically Ric Flair. And to me, that stood out more than any of the other fantastic ones that are throughout the year that we will talk about here in a second. So that was the "Fire Me, You Mark" promo from MJF for me.
Yeah, there were a couple things at play there. MJF was having difficulties with Tony Khan. He didn't show up for his meet and greet at All Out before his match against Wardlow. Double or Nothing. He blew off the meet and greet, and a lot of people were upset about that. And there were rumors, which have or have not been confirmed, that he had a plane ticket out of Vegas before the match because he wasn't going to show up. And thankfully, he did show up. If he would have blown off that match against Wardlow at Double or Nothing, I think that would have been a really bad look. That would have been something CM Punk would do. So
we say that now, but at that time, we'd be like, "What the fuck, MJF?"
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree though that dropping the meet and greet, which started the whole thing, people were like, "Oh, he had a plane ticket, so he was going to bail anyways." There was also talk that he had a private jet chartered by Tony to fly him out. So there were rumors all over the place, left and right, and that's why I think it was so pivotal.
Yeah. Yeah, so the other votes, there were 2 other promos that were voted on by the Elite Mark Order. One of them was the Regal MJF promo after MJF won the title. That was actually my choice. That was my favorite promo of the year. One of the reasons was because we did a podcast recapping that show, and we talked for, I think, almost an hour just on that one promo, because MJF touched so many different things and kind of really established himself as he's going to be a top champion. He's going to be the champion for a long time. He's going to have a great run. And we can expect a lot of creativity from him, just because he's trying to build a legacy that few before him have ever been able to do. So that was my pick.
And for good reason. It was a phenomenal promo.
yeah, it was he talked about so many different things, and then lastly, the other promo that was voted on was Moxley's promo after Brawl Out. That was when MJF came again. It involves MJF.
Mm-hmm.
So MJF clearly is the best talker in the business, regardless of. I don't even think there's anyone in any promotion that can touch him right now. So after Brawl Out, MJF came out in Buffalo. It was almost a hero's welcome. He wore a Josh Allen jersey, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, and eventually Jon Moxley came out and confronted him. And Moxley gave a really strong promo about what it means to be the top guy in the company and what it means to support the promotion and carry the torch. And basically, Moxley's strong promo after All Out kind of showed that AEW is going to be okay without Punk, with Punk leaving, and of course the Elite getting suspended, which we had just found out about that show. But we knew that with Mox being around and some of the other veterans, that AEW was going to move on just fine without those guys. Maybe not as good, but it was going to be fine. And I think is a noteworthy promo, and I'm impressed that Krillin actually picked out that one to vote for, because I think that was a pivotal promo as well.
It was, and it set Jon Moxley up as the term is, the ace, because he picked up the belt and he said, "I'm not going anywhere." And he planted the flag. He planted the AEW flag in the ground and said, "Come at me." He became the standard bearer. And for good reason, he voted for it. So it was a great promo. But again, for me, it didn't have the cross-promotional reaction and mainstream reaction that MJF got. So it was still great.
Yep. So the final vote count is 1 for Mox after Brawl Out, 2 votes for Regal and MJF after MJF won the world title. And the last vote is, with receiving 3 votes, the promo was the MJF Fire Me.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Wait a
I
minute.
received an email from the anonymous Raw general manager. It says, and I quote, "My name is John Laurinaitis, and I am here to say that if you do not vote any WWE superstar for any of his awards, then you are not a worthy podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and announce the winners. The winner of Superstar of the Year is Roman Reigns. The winner of the Divas
Scott,
of the Year is
I don't know how he keeps getting in.
The winner of Tag Team of the Year is the Usos. Announcer of the Year is Michael Cole. Male breakout talent is Austin Theory. What the hell are you two sighing about, huh?
You need a lozenge. You hurt my throat just listening to you.
I don't understand what the hell you're talking about. My throat is just fine. People power, people power, people power.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what I thought. And we're an AEW podcast, jackass, not WWE. Don't you know that?
I don't know what the hell an AEW is, but I'm sure that it's useless. Okay? What is it? That root beer company, huh?
Okay, Danhausen, nice recycled joke.
What the hell's a Danhausen?
Oh, he's a wrestler.
I've never heard of him. If he doesn't work for WWE, I don't know him, okay?
Yeah.
Now, boys, let me just say this, gentlemen. You two have been released for budget cut reasons because me and Fitz need more money to be able to pay for our NDAs to continue pass this women around like cheese trays. And also remember, gentlemen, too, I am married to Nikki and Bray Bella's mom. That means that I am their stepdad. And truth be told, their mom is horrible in bed, so that's why I cheat on her all the time. Got it? Now, before I leave you, gentlemen, let me just remind you again. People power and WWE are the greatest damn things in the world. Fuck you both. I'm out.
Oh, good God. How do these people keep getting in? Jesus.
John Laurinaitis, everybody.
Yeah.
Should I add his? I didn't realize he was in the Elite Mark order. Should I add his votes to the spreadsheet?
For what? WWE wrestlers?
Well, I mean, Michael Cole. I mean, we're talking some serious talent there.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Cole is a fantastic announcer, and now that he's not got Vince in his ear, but we're not here for WWE, damn it!
That's right. That's right. All right, let's move on to our next category, which is Feud of the Year. So all of the votes for Feud of the Year, there were 5 for one and 1 for another. Both of them involved CM Punk. So the first is Punk versus AEW, and the second is MJF versus Punk. And Scott, you voted for the only outlier, which was Punk versus AEW.
Well, that's really, for me, it was the feud of the year. It's still being talked about. The repercussions are going to be felt literally for years. And that's when Punk turned on all of AEW, started talking shit about the Elite, right next to Tony Khan, it all out. And it's the repercussions of that one feud, of him being against Hangman, against the Elite, against all of the people in the back, all of the children that he works with, all of that really culminated in All Out, in the Brawl Out, as everybody's calling it. And that, to me, is the feud that people will continue to talk about. Now, it's not a legit wrestling feud by any means whatsoever. It's absolutely a kayfabe reality feud. But the fact is, Punk took on the entire corporation, and guess who won? It wasn't Punk. So for me, that was the feud. Now, of course, he's going to be in all the rest of the top feuds because he had some great matches before he hurt himself and then got himself kicked out of his job. But the fact is, he tried to take on the entire corporation and got kicked out. Now, there's even people like Chris Jericho who are like, I will never let him back in the company. Because he's toxic, he's a poison, and everybody knows it now. He's got people like Dax and a couple of others who are doing their best to try to mend those roads. But CM Punk blew that bridge up with fucking dynamite. Quite literally dynamite. He's not coming back. And that's still a really big feud to me.
Yeah, it's still kind of crazy that whole deal happened. I mean, Punk, you know, I guess he put on a front for, you know, all those months where he behaved so well and was happy in all his pictures and posted pictures with people backstage. It looked like all was well in Punkland until he got hurt, and then he did the pipe bomb thing with Adam Page when he called out Hangman, and then it was just downhill from there, and all the stuff stemming around Colt Cabana. But we could do a whole show on Punk versus AEW. One thing that I wanted to do on the website was put together a timeline and all the interviews and stuff that were referenced to kind of the things that led to all that turmoil. It would be nice to have a good historical reference for that on the Elite Mark Order website. So that's something that will hopefully be coming in 2023.
That'd be a good post. That'd be a great post for the page or for the website. You're right on that.
So going back to the voting, everybody else voted for MJF versus Punk, which was an incredible feud. I believe that feud started over Thanksgiving of 21 when Punk and MJF had their first encounter in the ring, where they went over, and it was like almost 20 minutes of just those two going back and forth. And you know, that was some of the best promo work I've ever seen in wrestling. You know, top 5 easy. And that feud that carried over into a feud into this year with the dog collar match. You know, there's been other feuds. Like at this point, you could probably argue that the Elite versus Death Triangle could be feud of the year just because of how hot and heavy things are getting. But it's spanning over. The finale of that feud is happening in 2023 and not 2022. So I think it just misses the cut. And you know, there were a bunch of other great feuds, during 2022. But MJF versus Punk gets 5 votes as feud of the year.
If Punk hadn't blown himself up, everything would be Punk. He would be getting all the accolades. He'd be getting all the promo of the year, the wrestler. He would be getting all of the accolades if he hadn't fucked up in his own career. Now, as far as putting on a happy face and showing a mask, I think he was legit happy. But as a person who occasionally has lost control emotionally, I can say he was hurt, he was tired, he was hungry, he had low blood sugar. There's any number of reasons why his emotional outburst got the better of him. I understand it even if I don't agree with it. And the fact of the matter is, he should have known to shut up himself, to walk away, and Tony absolutely should have shut him up, but didn't happen. And that's where we are now. So, feud of the year, Punk versus MJF, I can't argue that. It was fantastic, till it wasn't.
All right, and yeah, it does make me think we could talk for probably two hours on
just
on
Punk.
Yeah, just talk about the different stories and the different things that come out and how things are. It's being carried on by like Dax.
Yep.
Dax of FTR just did a podcast where he talked about it. He didn't provide any new information other than Punk allegedly FaceTimed him after it happened. But he was very careful not to talk about anything else. I think the whole roster that was there might be under NDA because Dax didn't provide any new information, despite people acting like his interview was revolutionary. So,
yeah, and realistically, the Dax didn't say anything. He just tried to mend some roads, which, okay, great, that's his friend. He's trying to help out, but Jericho, like I said, flat out said he's going to tell Tony, do not bring him back ever. And Tony listens to Jericho. He has to. He's one of his number one guys.
Yeah.
So, there's just so much to be said about the different feuds. Could Death Triangle help or be, Death Triangle versus the Elite? Absolutely. Again, if they hadn't been suspended, we might be talking about that feud now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, that was 2 months. It definitely changed everything with Punk leaving. And like you said, he could have won. He would have won 3 of the major awards here easily.
Mm-hmm.
But since he's gone, let's move on to the next category, which is number 1 announcer.
I don't think there's any question who in AEW is the finest announcer they have. Not only does he do the speed rundown, but he's also on the best YouTube show, which is Dark. He's on everything. So realistically, there's nobody else it could be. There just isn't.
Yeah, Excalibur was a clean sweep. It was unanimous.
All right. It is I, Danhausen, very nice and very evil. So, I hear that this is the AEW Year End Award. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Danhausen? How did you get in?
Well, I've been here this whole time. I listened to your conversation with Johnny Ace, and actually, you summoned Danhausen when you said Danhausen's name while arguing with Johnny Ace. That's not the point.
Did you pop out from under my desk or something?
I can neither confirm nor deny that I did, but anyway, Danhausen happens to have all the envelopes for every single award. And the winner for every award is Danhausen. Now you will pay Danhausen 1 million monies for winning every award.
Oh.
Lots of monies for you. We have your checks in the mail, Danhausen.
Are you sure about that?
When's the last time you checked your mail?
I honestly don't remember. But, in all seriousness, Danhausen says that what you should do is you should pick his best friend, Hook, as the breakout superstar of the year. If not, Danhausen will curse you. And you don't want to be cursed by Danhausen.
No, especially since it means being punched in the dick.
Yes, it means being punched in your Dickhausen by Danhausen. In the meantime, Danhausen's Cathausen just decided to meow into the mic. Which is not fun. Kittyhausen, you must sit down and stop being bad. No, do not open up the damn door. No, sit down. Danhausen will curse you, okay? Sit down.
You're gonna curse your own cat? You're evil.
I am also very nice. The cat is actually immune to Danhausen's curses. I gave her that ability a long time ago when I first got her. So, yeah, she is immune to all of Danhausen's curses. Sorry, I'm a little bit tipsy right now. Anyway, I will say this: if you do not pick Danhausen for any award, then I will simply not curse you, but I will stand.
I think he just blew his mic up.
Yeah, I think the mic is dead.
Hey, what? You blew up my mic?
No, you blew your mic.
Oh. And I will send Herc Got it?
I think you might have blown eardrums all over the world from everyone listening to this podcast as well, Danhausen.
Oh. Well, Danhausen would like to apologize for any eardrumhausen burnt out by Danhausen's yelling. And please do not sue Danhausen for any monies. Danhausen needs all of his monies to add more action figures to his figure collection with Egon Page. And
You know it's Ethan, not Egon, right?
it is Egon Page, just like how Chris Jericho is known as Chris Judas. Understood? Christopher Judas.
Okay.
Just like how I am Christopher Massachusetts, not Santa Claus. I said this to, what is his name again? Who does the hey you thing?
I don't remember. I don't watch that show.
Yes, well, as I said to him, I am Christopher Massachusetts, not Santa Claus. So, Danhausen shall go back to the parts unknown in Canada, somewhere in Canada. Yes, parts unknown is actually in Canada. And I will make sure to watch your channel every day. And I will not curse you unless you send Danhausen 1 million human monies. Got it?
Checks in the mail, buddy.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
Right.
have a good day, Hausen.
All right. Thanks, Danhausen. Danhausen, everybody.
He was certainly a lot nicer than the other guys who visited.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
literally just popped up from out from under my desk, and he brought his cat.
You just never know what's going to happen on an Elite Mark Order podcast.
I'm telling you, this is crazy.
All right. So back to announcer. Excalibur with the clean sweep. He has been easily been the top announcer, and just consistent. He's incredible at calling play-by-play, and he has good rapport with all the other guys that come on to work with him. So, Excalibur Announcer of the Year, 6 votes, no exceptions.
Nope, and for good reason. He's the best. As a matter of fact, I can't think of anybody who would even be close. Paul White is the most improved, but just flat best announcer, nobody could come close.
You got Ronaldo, who sometimes is just incredible calling matches. Mauro Ronaldo, I'm saying his name right. Trying to think of who else would be on Excalibur's level. I don't really care for any of the WWE guys, including Michael Cole. I'm not a fan of his work.
He's actually pretty good, and once Triple H gave him a little bit more leash, he showed that he could do it. I mean, I'm against WWE. They turned me off years ago, and I'm not going back, but he is a good announcer, and I'll give him credit. As far as on the level of Excalibur, he absolutely is. As far as skill set wise. Even somebody like, I hate to say Corey Graves, is a good announcer. Is he lead announcer? No. But he brings a lot to the table, more so than a lot of the color guys that AEW currently has. And I hate to say that, but it is what it is.
The guy I'd like to see come back the most is Joey Styles. He's always been my favorite as a voice of ECW.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to have Joey Styles in ECW. But Joey doesn't really seem interested in working for wrestling anymore, unfortunately, because I love Joey Styles calling matches. He's always so much fun.
He had his own style, and the quest. I don't even remember half of his gimmicks, but he knew how to get somebody over, and I think that he'd be a good honorable mention if he was in AEW this year.
Yeah, he was like the personification of that aura, that energy he had at those ECW shows at the 2600 Arena in Philly. He just captured all that energy and all that edginess from those fans and turned it, and it came out through his announcing. It was just awesome.
It was a uniquely 90s experience, is all I can say.
Yes, it was.
Very 90s. ECW was its own beast.
That it was. I could do a show on ECW for probably 5 or 6 hours just talking about it.
There's so much happened.
No preparation. We could just walk through.
Yeah.
So many different things. All right. Up next is Match of the Year. So there were 3 finalists. Punk versus MJF dog collar match.
Yeah.
Danielson versus Garcia.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And last is Swerve in Our Glory versus Acclaimed at All Out.
Now, that was my personal vote, and that's primarily for me because of just how over the Acclaimed are now. They took over the tag team division. I've mentioned this before. They literally stole the song from Keith Lee during their match. The whole, all bask in his glory, totally stolen and given by the audience to the Acclaimed. And that was when they arrived. And to me, that was the best match of the year because nobody expected it to get that reaction. And it's still carrying on. The Acclaimed is still the most over act, really. They still get the loudest pops. They still get media attention. Karen Jarrett is again talking about Max Caster's rap. So they can light people on fire just with their promos. And that match was phenomenal. Every move people were into, it was crisp. It was the wrong team that won because they didn't call it on the fly because Swerve in Our Glory won. But that match between them was so good. How could it be anything else?
Yeah, it was completely unexpected how good that match was. I mean, you have a team Swerve in Our Glory that, everyone thought they were going to be broken up because they had been teasing them breaking up for months, and here they are with the tag titles. And then just the way the crowd embraced the Acclaimed is one of those matches that just stands out that I'll never forget because it was so surprising to me. I'm not a huge Acclaimed fan. I'm not going to be walking around with a Scissor Me Daddy Ash shirt. It's just not really my thing. But just the way that the crowd embraced them and just how into that match the crowd was at All Out, specifically in Chicago, was amazing. It was phenomenal. And so that was my pick as well. And that is the match of the year, according to the Elite Mark Order, with 3 votes. Punk MJF Dog Collar got 2, and Danielson versus Garcia got 1.
I mean, again, Punk MJF is going to be in almost every conversation at this point because at that point it was so freaking good. Was this dog collar match great? Yes, of course. It was MJF and Punk. But, there's a reason why I got votes because it was good. But again, I think that we all agree that the Swerve in Our Glory versus Acclaim, nobody expected it to be as good as it was. And I think that's why it won.
Yeah, I'm giving basing that vote just on the crowd response during that match, and what a wild ride those two teams took the crowd on. My personal favorite match of the year was probably the Elite versus United Empire Will Ospreay in the 6-man. I love that show off between Kenny and Ospreay.
Yeah,
it was actually kind of a tease for the match that's happening tomorrow or in 2 days at Wrestle Kingdom.
Tomorrow 2 days for us, but tomorrow for Japan.
Yeah. So looking forward to the Kenny Ospreay match. And then the other match I really liked, I liked the Elite versus the Dark Order and Hangman at in the finalists at All Out.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great match too. But I'm going on crowd response instead of my personal favorite here and saying that Swerve in Our Glory and Acclaimed rightfully is the Elite Mark Order's pick for match of the year.
Absolutely. Next, I think we have is the female breakout wrestler of the year. What was the tally on that, Jay?
Oh, it is close.
It
is, let's see, 1, 2, 3.5, 1, 2, 2.5, 3.5 to 2.5.
How do we get half votes?
Someone voted for a tie.
Oh, well, okay.
Kingpin had a tie between the two that other people voted for. So there's actually one other tie that's gonna. We'll get there in a little bit, but Jamie Hayter and Willow for female breakout. I voted Hayter just because she just seemed like a second to Britt Baker, and my thought was, she's just gonna, kind of hang around, and then they'll fight each other, and she'll go face, and she won't really get a good crowd reaction, and then she'll just, kind of fade or move on to Dark and Elevation, and then come back every once in a while. That's not what happened.
You mean the Ruby Soho method?
Right. But Jamie Hayter got freaking over and just had a 4.5-star match with Shida to close out the year, which was the highest rated non-gimmick match for women in AEW's whole existence. And man, the crowd goes nuts for her. She is exciting. Her near falls are incredible. They're believable.
Mm-hmm.
She's just been amazing. She's only 27, and I'm just super excited to see what she's going to bring to the table in the future.
Oh, Hayter was absolutely my number 2. She was. I mean, you look at where she basically came in. She was the heater for Baker. She was just in the background. She was just like, I'm here to help Baker. They teased a breakup and then they didn't. They teased a breakup and then they, so she sort of just bubbled away in the background as fans got behind her more and more. And then eventually it became undeniable and they put the title on her for good reason. But holy cow, yes, Hayter had a great year. But for me, Willow, well, that's where I voted, was Willow Nightingale. And the reason I did that was because she started the year on Dark and Elevation. Virtually unknown. She was from ROH. People know her from there. Mm-hmm. And it took her a while. And she built up and built up. Much like Hayter, the organic response, and that's what TK really has started paying attention to. The organic response to Willow started to come across. And so she got an opportunity here. And she lost, but she was over. She got an opportunity there. She lost, but she's over. And then she went, over the course of a year, she went from unknown Dark and Elevation matches to tag team matches at the top of the card, near the main event, or even, I can't imagine anybody moving up the card so quickly, and rightfully so. Not only is she good in the ring, she brings a great energy, great attitude. Even with Ruby Soho and her dour sourpuss, Willow shines next to her. So, for me, she was the breakout of the year because she started virtually unknown. Jamie Hayter came in with a reputation and started at the top of the card, next to Britt Baker. Didn't do Dark, didn't do Elevation. Simply stayed on Dynamite and Rampage next to Britt Baker, and then got her title shot, and then got, her accolades. Yep. But Willow started at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for me, is a greater achievement, as much as I like Hayter.
Yep. All right, so Hayter with 3.5 votes to Willow, who received 2.5. So Jamie Hayter takes the award.
I disagree. I can't argue Hayter, getting the votes, but for me, again, like I said, climbing the mountain is so much harder, and she did it, and she's there, and people know her now, and I see nothing but great things in 2023 climbing that ladder. Maybe she beats Jade Cargill.
Maybe
that
would be something. Or maybe who's gonna beat Jade is debuting in 9 days in LA.
Maybe. Well, no, she's debuting in Wrestle Kingdom.
Well, for AEW, she's debuting in 9 days, potentially.
I'm telling you right now, and this I've said it before in other conversations. I think Sasha is an NJPW talent for a year, with on loan to AEW. So maybe she still makes her debut. I still think she's signed in Japan. She'll be there for a while, work that for a while, and then sign to somewhere else, like either AEW or go back to WWE in a year. I don't think she's going back to WWE ever, personally. But
we should see. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what happens at that show, because it seems like people are saying she has to, like Punk. People are saying it has to be her.
Yeah. Well, I never thought that I would see Bret Hart in the WWE again, but he showed up. I never thought I'd see Bischoff back in WWE. He showed up. Warrior, he showed up. So I can't say never, but I don't see Sasha Banks coming back anytime soon. And yeah, if she's not there at Dynamite on the 11th, I think people are going to riot.
Yeah, people are not going to be happy.
No.
So, all right, back to the awards. So, male breakout star. Now, this was we had a bunch of variety here. We had a couple guys get 2 votes, and then a couple guys get 1. So, I voted for Daniel Garcia. I thought he had a phenomenal year.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was also a toss-up between him and Yuta.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked Daniel Garcia just because I kind of like Daniel Garcia a little more than Wheeler Yuta.
Hell of a wrestler.
And the other guys that received votes, someone voted for Hook. Personally, I don't think Hook has really had any real matches yet, other than his one match versus Moriarty. Otherwise, most of his matches have just been straight up squashes. So I still think Hook has a lot to prove as far as working a match and telling a story in the ring, as opposed to being booked like a 160-pound Bill Goldberg who can just destroy everyone and no sell pile drivers. So I think there's a lot more to be. There's a lot more that Hook needs to prove before I'm giving him a vote for anything.
I agree. I think he needs to develop some before I would be able to say he's breakout. But you got to look at, again, where he started, where he is now. He started off with phenomenal crowd reaction, still has great crowd reaction. He's not been given a real AEW title. He was given the FTW title.
Yep.
He had a test with Hook for about a week and a half, or not Hook, Danhausen for about a week and a half, and then that disappeared. Now he's working with Starks or Action. I don't remember who he's working with. He's working with somebody.
Action Andretti?
No, I think Starks is doing Action Andretti.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He saved somebody. Oh, it was Jungle Boy. So now it's going to be Jungle Hook. So, okay, cool. He's having an okay year. He's still over. He's still getting... he's still very green, as everybody knows. He's greener than Cargill. But
that would be an interesting matchup, is Jungle Boy versus Hook.
I think they'll get to it. I think they'll get to it in 2023.
Because I do like Hook in the ring. I think he has a unique style. I love his judo throws. It's very unique. Kind of reminds me of Rousey a little bit. When Rousey first showed up, was mixing a lot of those judo moves that you're not used to seeing. But the other guy who received votes, and actually you voted for him, was Takeshita.
I love Takeshita. I didn't know a thing about him till he showed up, and I'm a huge fan now. He's had phenomenal matches. Again, for me, the critical thing is, can he connect to the audience, the live audience, and of course the TV audience and the internet audience. I don't think he's had a bad match. I don't think there's been a match where he's gotten silence for anything. His entrance is always well received. His moves are well received. His comebacks, his babyface comeback, has always got a good cheer. He's a literal student of the game. He did a dissertation on the German suplex. So this dude, and he's a big, tall, beef. He's like 6'1", 6'2", big, tall, beefy Japanese guy. And when you see that, you're like, damn, he can move in the ring. He's got all of the strong style background. He's young. He's already the ace of, I think it was Noah or NJPW Strong, one of those. He's got such a career ahead of him. He's absolutely the breakout for me because, again, another guy who went from nothing, I don't know a thing about him, to working matches with the top card. Moxley, Jericho, you name them, he can work with any of them. And a great match, no matter who it's against. I absolutely think this was his breakout. Absolutely.
Yeah, Takeshita, I knew of him before. He showed up in AEW. He's had matches with Kenny in the past. You can find those on YouTube. He's a hell of a talent. He's got a look like Takayama, who's one of the great shoot wrestlers in Japan over the years, and Takeshita fights a similar style of him, using the Everest suplex as his finisher. And he's just an incredible talent. He's one of the top-rated wrestlers of the year for his work in and outside AEW. He just had a ton of great and highly rated matches. The reason I didn't vote for Takeshita as breakout is because I thought he was already established as a star outside of AEW, whereas to me, Daniel Garcia at the beginning of the year, I wouldn't have said he was a star. Now I think Daniel Garcia is, where Takeshita I would have said. So that's why I voted for Daniel Garcia. It's all very subjective.
Of course.
Takeshita received 2 votes, tying him with Wheeler Yuta, and Hook and Daniel Garcia received 1.
Well, I mean, Yuta, again, had a phenomenal breakout match. Against Moxley, he joined the BCC. He's the ROH Pure Champion. Absolutely, there's a great argument to be made that Yuta is a huge breakout. And he absolutely was my number 2 choice. If it wasn't going to be Takeshita, it was going to be Yuta. Now, again, I understand where you're coming with Garcia. I don't think he's gotten over as much. I know he's had some great matches with Danielson, and he's got the personality as the sports entertainer and that whole thing. The Willie won't he leave the JAS, but for me, Wheeler Yuta went from best friends to top of the card. He went from a joke comedy wrestler on Dark and Elevation to being in a tag team with John fucking Moxley.
Yeah, I remember those skits on Dark where Chris Statlander was beating him up and they were making fun of him because he didn't have a finisher because he never won his matches.
Yep.
So
and it was amazing to watch him like the next week almost. I mean, it wasn't quite, but basically the next week he's in a match and suddenly he's against Mox and he's joining the BCC and oh my God, he's over. So yeah, that was a phenomenal rise.
All right, so the Elite Mark Order has their first tie in the year-end award votings, going to Wheeler Yuta and Takeshita. So congrats to both of them.
Woohoo! Good job, guys.
All right, up next is top tag team. So there are 3 finalists: FTR, Acclaimed, and Swerve and Keith Lee. I voted for Swerve and Keith Lee, and honestly, I should have probably voted for the Acclaimed, but I just wanted to be the contrarian. And I want to say that the Acclaimed got over as much as they did because of they were feuding with Swerve and Keith Lee. Yeah. And Swerve and Lee made the Acclaimed look a lot better than they actually are. So that's my vote for Swerve and Keith Lee. They are no longer a team as if Keith Lee is going to continue to be used by Tony Khan or he's going to be given the Miro treatment. We're probably going to see a Keith Lee versus Swerve feud shortly. So,
well, I mean, he did have a concrete cinder block crushed on his chest, so I think they're going to sell that for a week or two.
Yeah, that's true.
And let Swerve do his thing with his 2 white bodyguards or whatever.
Yeah, he's got to establish his new faction.
Yeah, whatever, the young Reginalds, or I don't even know what their name is, Young Legends, whatever. The only part of that entire thing that got over was, you're a big motherfucker. Because Rick Ross just has no filter. The reason all 3 of them are great tag teams. FTR is probably the best tag team in the world. I can't say anything otherwise. But for me, again...
I would say Young Bucks are better than FTR, but carry on.
The fact is, it's arguable, and they're both fantastic. But for me, again, you look at the rise. You look at the change. You look at, did they go from nothing to the top of the heap? And that's the Acclaimed. Now, they didn't go from nothing, but they're literally the first homegrown tag team of AEW. Tony saw them and said, I'm putting you guys together. And it worked. It took a while, but it worked. Max Caster's got the raps. He's absolutely got the charisma. And Bowens got over the Scissor Me Daddy. He created that. The fact is, together, they have broken into mainstream. The Scissor Me thing has gotten into baseball dugouts, football fields. It's mainstreamed itself. How can you argue that they've risen from obscurity on Dark and Elevation, got over with their raps, got mainstream coverage from their raps, and then backed it up with really solid tag team? I love FTR. They deserve accolades. I love the Young Bucks and Death Triangle and a host of others. But for the year, I think the Acclaimed had the greatest rise, and they are, to me, still the most over act in all of AEW. They get the biggest cheers right now. Crowd loves them, chants along with them. They go virtually silent to hear the rap because they're just waiting for Max's next words.
Yep.
It's hard to argue them as not being the best tag team of the year. Not because they put on the best matches, because so far they're pretty good. But, I've seen better. I've seen Young Bucks versus Death Triangle enough times. Right. The Lucha Brothers, those matches are always amazing. Yep. But you look at what the Acclaim has done over the last year, and that's why they get the nod. Next year might be totally different. But this year, they went from nothing, much like Willow, and now they're on top. They have to be my choice.
So yeah, I think it's clear Acclaimed is the team of the year. They did win with 4 out of 6 votes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, mine was kind of a contrarian because I just didn't want the Acclaimed sweep. And we did have a vote for FTR. What I'll say about FTR is, I'm not a mark for FTR. Like I do like the Bucks a lot more than FTR,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the Bucks generally have better matches.
Mm-hmm.
However, this year the Bucks were on the sidelines most of the year, for various reasons. You know, their suspension and Tony just not using them. So FTR in June they had just won the ROH tag titles. They had the New Japan titles, and they had won the AAA tag
Mm-hmm.
titles last year. So the thought was they were super over. They got their new theme music. They were 7-star FTR,
Mm-hmm.
top guys, and I thought, you know, they had tag team of the year locked up. Like I thought they were going to win the AEW tag titles and have 4 different titles at the same time from 4 large promotions, which is unheard of.
Had they done that, they probably would have taken it across the board.
Right, but for whatever reason, FTR, I think they were really banged up. They couldn't fight as often as they wanted, and I think towards the end of the year, they did not extend their contract.
Yeah.
And so Tony didn't want to put the straps on them because they were not under contract. That's my opinion. I can't verify that, but I think that's why FTR was kind of off TV for a bit between that and their injuries. And he did allow FTR to have bangers with the Briscoe brothers in ROH, but the ROH was not included in the voting for
Nope.
this. So otherwise, they would probably have won match of the year. I still haven't. I shouldn't even admit this on the podcast, but I still haven't seen their match against the Briscoes. The dog collar match, because that's a lot of people are saying that's match of the year. I will watch that soon.
Here's the thing. I won't. And it's not because of FTR.
Yep.
I have a thing against the Briscoes, and it's probably going to be that way for a while.
Yep.
I don't care how good they are. Outside the ring, what you say matters.
Right.
Talk to CM Punk about that.
Yes.
Sorry,
So,
I'm just so against the Briscoes. I don't care how good
Yeah.
their match is. I'm just not watching it.
Yeah, they said some pretty. Well, one of them said some pretty horrific things. So.
And you know what? They've done their mea culpas, and they're like, yeah, but I don't care. You know what? The fact of the matter is, it came from their upbringing. Their upbringing hasn't changed. It came from their religion. Their religion hasn't changed. As a matter of fact, their religion has gotten further and further right. And if they're still claiming that religion is still claiming to do the Lord's work, they haven't changed shit.
Yep, that's correct. That is correct.
Anyways.
All right, so congratulations to the Acclaimed for almost sweeping the Tag Team of the Year awards.
But well deserved. The acclaim they get as the Acclaimed is very deserving. They have arrived.
So up next, we have the most diverse from the standpoint of votes field. We have 5 wrestlers or 6 wrestlers that were mentioned.
Out of 6 votes.
Yep. Tony Storm, Jade Cargill, Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker, Sheeta, and there was a tie between Tony Storm and Jamie Hayter as Female Wrestler of the Year.
I mean, we talked about it earlier. It's hard not to say that Hayter isn't a phenomenal wrestler. It's hard not. I mean, Tony Storm did great as the interim then full champion, and she should have been the full champion the whole time. And it's retroactive, but she should have just been called the champion. They didn't know how long Rosa was going to be out. I understand voting for Rosa because she's had some great matches. She did really well this year, but for me, the reason I voted the way I did was because Jade Cargill, that was my vote. And not only has she been dominant as the TBS champion, she's also, again, had crossover exposure, had sort of multiple promotions when she first came in a year or 2 ago, whenever it was with Shaq. WWE wanted her, AEW wanted her. So she had that attention from the beginning. She's tall, she's strong, she's absolutely got the presence. And I think for me, she stayed at the top. She may not have had all the best matches. She might not even have had any really good stories. But her story is literally how well she's adapted to wrestling. She's only had like 40 match. I don't even know at this point. All of the matches are her win streak, so it's 40 something. But the fact is, she's only had 40 matches in her entire career, and she's this good. If she had as many years experience as Jamie Hayter, she'd be freaking CM Punk. On the good side, not the bad.
Right.
You know, she's behind the scenes, she's training with Danielson. I can't think of anybody better. She's working on her promo skills. She's got a little bit of a story going on now with the baddies. She's established the TBS title as a legit title, which is what it was about. She, you know, for me, I think she's really put on a phenomenal year as a not a rookie, but as someone who's still very, very green. You know, I can't think of any women who have had a better year because, again, where they started, where they are now. Jamie Hayter, lots of experience. Toni Storm, lots of experience. Willow, I voted for the breakout, so she can't be Female Wrestler of the Year, but she probably could have been for me. Just Jade Cargill established her dominance this year. And I think as a result, the TBS title is almost equal to the women's title. In sort of a Rob Van Dam TV title way back in ECW.
So, yeah, so I actually did a bit of research. This was the hardest one for me to pick, just because Thunder Rosa had this award under wraps, but she got hurt in August and missed the second half of the year. But she went 26-4 this year. I don't know how many of those matches were. I'd have to go back and check how many of those were in AEW. I know she wrestles in the Indies as well, and in Mexico. So she had solid matches with Britt, Deeb, Storm. Mm-hmm. One knock against Rosa was she did have attitude issues. There was some problems in a match with what was her name?
Diamante, Ivelisse.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what match it was, and I don't want to guess wrong. But where Thunder Rosa wasn't working moves to make her opponent look bad.
The sandbag. It was the sandbag match.
Sandbag. Yeah. Yep. So Thunder Rosa had, just kind of using Dave Meltzer's scale, Thunder Rosa had 5 matches rated 3.5 or better. She had 6 successful title defenses, and a lot of those matches were rated well, and they came with storylines. Mm-hmm. Britt Baker went 17-11 this year. She also had 5 matches that rated a 3.5 or better. She defended her title twice before she lost to Rosa. She beat Rosa on the pay-per-view. Everyone thought she was going to lose. And then they had the cage match in San Antonio to give Rosa the title. Jamie Hayter was 14-11. She did not start the year strong at all, but as the fans continued to support her, she just blew up the charts and had a lot of great matches. She ended the year with a 4.5 star match against Shida, which was the highest rated non-gimmick match in women's history in AEW. Mm-hmm. That was an incredible match with false finishes that I talked about with Hayter earlier. Mm-hmm. Shida went 33-8. She did not hold the title, and she only had 1 match in AEW rated over 3.5 stars, which I was kind of surprised about. She didn't have a lot of matches in AEW this year. A lot of those were on Elevation or Dark, and they were squash matches.
Yep.
And then lastly, and this is who I voted for, was Toni Storm. I thought Toni Storm did a great job coming in. There was a lot of excitement about her coming in because she was, a legit talent from WWE.
Yep.
And that WWE wasn't using properly. And she ended up kind of taking the torch when Thunder Rosa went out. Had some excellent matches, real solid matches. I like her style in the ring. I like her technical ability. So I picked Toni Storm. She had 3 successful defenses. It's a very subjective pick on my part, just because you could have picked any of these ladies to have won the award. Toni Storm was my pick. Jade Cargill went 24-0. However, she had 16 defenses of her title. Only 2 of those 16 matches were over 8 minutes, and only one of those was over 10. And then when you get to the rating on the Jade matches, she didn't have one single match rated more than a 2.25 for Meltzer, which is pretty bad. And then a 6/10 from Kate, 6 out of 10 was the highest rated match on Cage Match, and it was like a 5.9, and that's again is kind of a low bar. So I think Jade needs to get into better stories and
Absolutely.
get into better matches against some of the talent that we just talked about. Like I want to see her versus Toni Storm and Sheeta and Hayter and Rosa and Britt. I know she fought Hayter this year, I think.
You really can't do that because they're at the top of the card fighting for the women's title. And if they lose to Jade, it devalues them challenging for the women's title. That's why there's 2 women's division. It's the upper card and the lower card. And there's really not enough of them to, not enough that are good enough to really establish that 2 title separation. I'm personally not a fan of having 2 women's titles because right now the division isn't that big. That's why leaving it on Jade is a good move for me because it's establishing that it is a valuable title. I hear Jade didn't have great matches, but that's not why she got my vote. It's because she is establishing the title. She's establishing herself. And I'm looking at sort of where she started and where she got to. She started off with dog shit matches. And now they're actually pretty passable.
Yeah.
And by the way, with Toni Storm, she went from pie-in-the-face embarrassment to top-of-the-card champion in a different promotion. Oh, yeah, she was wasted in WWE. They did not.
She had a solid career in Japan and fighting in Stardom. And so the final votes came in. Like I said, 6 different people were voted, and Toni Storm is the winner with 1.5 votes.
Good on her, and she deserves the accolades. Another one, I voted the way I did for personal reasons, as we all do, but I can't disagree with your guys' choices because they're all really, really good wrestlers.
I would have preferred to see Riho as wrestler of the year for females because she has that capability. But when Toni only uses her 9 times and only twice on TV, it's kind of tough for her to do that. So I don't know if there were visa issues. I heard injuries, but Riho only fought like 15 matches this year, which is crazy.
And she was the first AEW champion.
Yep, it wasn't long ago. She was fighting 100 matches a year, so I'm not sure what's going on with Riho, but I know she got hurt in her match against Britt, and she messed up her shoulder, I believe, and that kept her out of action for a while. So maybe there's some issues lingering there, but hopefully next year she'll get back to regular schedule.
I liked her. She's the total underdog. She's like less than 100 pounds, and she won against Nyla. I mean, they built her up really well. I thought she was good. Again, as most of the Japanese wrestlers, if she can't cut a promo, she has to be able to connect with the audience organically. And I don't think Riho had that opportunity because COVID.
Yeah.
And Sheeta, same thing.
Yeah. Sheeta was the COVID champ.
She was.
All right. For our last category, we had votes for 2 people. MJF. The last category is male wrestler of the year, men's wrestler of the year, and it came down to Mox versus MJF. So what do you think, Scott? Who did you vote for?
I went for Moxley. It was a toss-up between the two. MJF, again, is a phenomenal talent who, rightfully so, brought attention. He for me, again, he had the promo of the year. For a lot of people, he had the match of the year. He had the feud of the year. He is a great wrestler, but I voted Moxley because he stepped up and became AEW's ace. He became the rock-solid foundation of the top of the card. I said it earlier, he planted the flag in the ground. He planted the AEW flag in the ground and said, I'm the standard you must match if you're going to be successful. And then he wrestled people like Takeshita. He wrestled some of the lower card guys. Sometimes he gave them the opportunity to have some offense. Sometimes he dominated them. It just depended on what was going on. But Moxley has to be the wrestler of the year for me because of what happened with Punk. He canceled his vacation. He totally changed his life around and said, you know what? I'm here for the company. I'm not going anywhere. And took the loss when he was asked, took the title back when he was asked, lost again and took the title, and then lost to MJF. I mean, he did everything necessary to establish AEW as legit, as real. And the fact is, when he cuts a promo, it's hard to believe that he doesn't know wrestling's not real. Like, does he know that it's not real? Between him and Eddie Kingston, I don't know sometimes. Because they come across that they legit are going to murder somebody, are going, he's phenomenal. To me, he's one of the reasons I watch. He has been from the beginning. He was I was a big fan back when he was in the Shield. Actually, I disliked him when he first showed up because he held the U.S. title for a year and a half and defended it once. But that was WWE. In AEW, since the day he showed up, he's put on fantastic matches. I mean, this year he became the standard bearer and became the ace, and that's why he got my vote. What about you?
I voted for Mox. I think it's a slam dunk for him this year. He held the company together after, CM Punk and Kenny Omega after his return due to suspension. So Mox really stepped up and held things together. He had a phenomenal year from just matches. He had so many great matches this year. Like if you look at his match guide on Cage Match, he had bangers, tag matches with Blackpool, all year. Sammy Guevara, Takeshita,
Yuta.
Yeah, Yuta, Penta. Great matches against Bryan Danielson.
Of course. Those two together in a ring, of course they're going to be great matches.
He had a good match against Punk. He had a good match against Jericho.
Yep.
He somehow got a 4-star match against Mance Warner, which I was looking at that and kind of scratching my head. I had to go back and
right.
Highlights on YouTube.
He did wrestle him, and he got 4 stars out of that. Huh.
Yeah. He had 4.5 star match against Roosh, 4.5 star against Takeshita. The Blood and Guts matches he participated in 4.75. He fought Tanahashi at Forbidden Door. He had that banger tag match with Tanahashi against Jericho and Lance Archer to set up Forbidden Door, and it just goes like he had a great match against Kyle O'Reilly. And I'm only in June, and I could spend another 5 minutes talking about everything he did this year. So there's absolutely no doubt that Mox is the wrestler of the year in AEW, not only putting on some of the best matches in the promotion, but holding the top title and being the top guy on so many cards and holding things together. So I think without a doubt, like Mox, one person's Scott picked MJF. MJF only really had 5 real matches this year.
He's never going to have a ton of matches. That's his entire gimmick.
And as important as those matches are, I don't know how you can give him match of the year when Moxley just did so much more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm fine with MJF having, 10 to 15 solid matches, but you got to have more than 4. So, and you can't just kind of disappear for 3 months either.
Well, not if you're going to get Wrestler of the Year. But again,
right.
he disappeared. It was a reason. It was totally different than the Punk stuff and the Elite stuff. But, you look at what Mox did, who he did it with. The fact is, he did put the entire company on his shoulder and said, no problem. He also went to rehab this year.
Yeah, I think that was last year,
Was it?
And he came back early this year. Yeah,
I'll look it up.
I was checking on that. Yeah, he was in rehab. We weren't sure when he was going to come back. And let's see if I look at his matches at the beginning of the year. He was out from October 27 or October 30th, 21 was his last match. And then he came back in January. So he was gone for November and December and then most of January. So he came back at the end of January. So he didn't miss much of the year, but he missed the first few weeks.
But that's what I'm saying is he came back from rehab this year.
Yes.
And everything he did since. How can you not vote for him as the Wrestler of the Year? Considering he came back from rehab, he put the title, he had the amazing matches, put the company on his shoulder, picked it back up after Punk fucking threw a bomb in the middle of everything.
Right.
And then he, look at what he sacrificed. He canceled the vacation with his wife and their new baby. He's like, you know what? I understand we want the vacation, but I mean, the dude sacrificed a lot for the company. And I think he earned it. He had, he had his indie stuff, which was good, but in AEW, the stuff he did was just light years beyond anybody else. Really is. Just that good.
Yeah, and also mention he held the GCW world title, which is, kind of it's really the number 3 promotion in the U.S. probably, behind WWE and AEW, and he was the champ there for 400 days straight, just losing it at the end of the year because Tony Khan doesn't want him fighting there anymore on a regular basis. He doesn't want him to get hurt.
And good reason for that, because GCW is crazy, but that's the style Moxley loves.
Right. So, when Mox restructured his deal, Tony kind of said, "Look, I'll pay you this money, but no more defending the GCW world title and pushing this other company and jumping off balconies through light tube."
And no more glass spots. Yeah, of course. And the fact is, he also is now more of a coach and a mentor backstage, like official. So his Blackpool Combat Club thing is legit. Like, it's not kayfabe. It's real. So, he's behind the scenes. He's done enough for the company that he deserves accolades and pay raises. But on camera, I mean, come on. The dude's amazing every time at promos, at matches, tagging, solo, hardcore. I don't know about high flying. I don't think he's ever been high flying. But I don't know anything he can't do.
Yeah, he's definitely the man, and he's well deserving of the award. And 5 of 6 votes go to Mox for Wrestler of the Year. And I think that's going to do it. That covers all the awards.
It does, and I do want to just bring up one last little thing about Moxley. Look at where the Shield is now. You got one who was the head, who was leading AEW. We've got one over at WWE who they apparently want to keep the title on forever. And then you have the workhorse Seth Rollins, who's still having phenomenal matches and building people. So I think somewhere along the line, whoever decided the Shield should be a thing should be commended, because that group, there were some stars.
And here's another little tidbit about the Shield. So guess who name this wrestler. I had 13 matches against the Shield, 1-on-3, and I won all of them.
That's Punk.
Yep. Punk beat the Shield in handicap matches 13 different times, 3-on-1.
Well, they were still building up the Shield at the time, and Punk was, I believe, the champion. So there was definitely some, mismatches, but
Shield breaking up was in the process, so they were arguing and fighting with each other, and that's how Punk. So,
but the fact is, it was the Shield versus Punk. I get it, and he brought them in, technically, sort of.
And I think that was one of his last matches in WWE, was going over the Shield before he quit.
I think so.
So beating the hottest faction in the business 13 times in a 3-on-1 match wasn't enough to keep him happy.
I don't know if they were hottest then, but certainly after that they became the hottest. Maybe not losing helped.
Right. So, CM Punk, his name's all over the place, even though he doesn't wrestle very often. So.
Or anymore.
Right. Or possibly never again.
I don't think he'll ever show up in AEW, not if Chris Jericho and the Elite have anything to say about it. And I can't imagine Moxley would be happy about it either. Will he go back to WWE? It's hard to say. There's so many reasons why he could or couldn't. This is what I think Tony's going to do. He's going to cool him off. I think he's going to keep him on contract, pay him, just let him cool. If he wants to go to WWE in 2 years at the end of his contract, great. Who cares? But if he isn't on TV, if he isn't wrestling and in people's minds, I think he's going to cool him off, and I think that's the only smart choice for Tony. Releasing him, especially now, bad idea. Because Punk's invigorated. I want to go do other shit. What's next? He's got to put him in the locker, and he's got to just cool him off and prove that Punk is not bigger than wrestling.
Right.
Maybe he'll show up in AJ Lee's promotion with the girls.
Maybe.
Be a ring announcer or something.
Open a mask and give some of GTS like he did on that indie show that one time.
You know what? I loved that. But that was back when Punk was still great. I'm still a Punk fan. I'm not going to kid anybody. I'm still a Punk fan. When Fight Forever comes out, he's still my guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to GTS the hell out of everybody.
I never liked Punk that much. I never did. I like the more technical wrestlers, and Punk just never made that grade for me. So
I was always into his straight edge stuff. I was always into the straight edge society, and he was interesting because he was saying things about the company, the Pipe Bomb, that I absolutely agreed with. Now nothing changed, and 10 years later nothing will change. But he was saying things that other people weren't, the voice of the voiceless. And that's when I became a bigger fan. Because he was saying shit to power that nobody else was able to and nobody else was willing to. And that's what I do. And yes, I blow up my career when I do that. And I get fired, but I do that shit because it needs to be said. And that's why I connected with him.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for listening for this long. Appreciate everybody, and we'll be back soon with another podcast. And don't forget Kenny versus Osprey in 2 days at Wrestle Kingdom. So that should be one of the greatest matches of the year of 23. So looking forward to that.
No question about that. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this everywhere because let's face it, we're interesting.
That's right. All right. Thank you, everybody.